Adrian Newey drops major bombshell on Lance Stroll and Aston Martin with shocking statement. Lance Stroll and Aston Martin have a very important period ahead of them, as the future of the Canadian driver has been brought into question yet again. This time, the change of scenery in the Silverstone-based squad is making the scenario of seeing Lance compete in another championship very realistic. With some of the steps he's made and the body language he's shown, there is quite a lot to talk about regarding whether or not he's happy in an F1 seat. With this in mind, can the nepotistic scenario of Aston Martin finally go to vain? And if so, who would be the successor of Lance? It goes without saying that Lance Stroll has been a very controversial figure in the sport, but for all the wrong reasons. The Canadian driver was massively outscored by Alonso last year, 70 to 24 points. And it's not like Lance has been competitive at any stage throughout his stint with Aston Martin. When the team was fighting for podiums in the first half of 2023, Lance was nowhere to be found compared to Alonso, who scored 6 podiums in the first 8 races of that season. But that is just an indicator of how a driver who understands that his future might be in danger performs compared to one who knows that as long as his father owns the team, he'll have a safe seat. But truth be told, there is more behind this story, and at this time, it might not even be up to Lawrence to decide whether or not Lance will remain in the team. Throughout last year, as well as in 2023, we've seen that Lance has expressed wishes to compete in other categories, and there were talks from his mother that he's not really that happy in Formula One. Reports and rumors have gone on to suggest that Lance's only reason for being in F1 is to make his father happy, which is, so far, proving true because no other driver would get to keep his seat if he performed the way Lance does right now. I'm not saying that he doesn't have any talent. We've seen that he was very competitive in Williams and in the crazy 2020 season with Racing Point, where he won a pole position as well. But those times are long forgotten, and the scenery is brand new right now. Lance has managed to out-qualify Alonso only 6 times in 2024, which is devastating considering the fact that both of them had to drive a very problematic car that didn't respond to upgrades. To add salt to the wound, it doesn't look like Lance wants to be in the sport anyway, at least if we're to judge by his body language and the emotions he expresses during press conferences and when talking to his race engineer. The former team principal of Haas, Guenther Steiner, who is now working as a professional analyst in the sport, believes that Lance doesn't want to be an F1 driver. That might be a bitter pill to swallow for his father. When talking about this in greater detail, Guenther said, "He never looks happy. He never seems to be happy no matter what happens. Would he be a world champion if he was happy? I don't know about that one. Some people can be good even when they are unhappy. However, that might just be his expression. A lot of people critique him, saying that he is such a bad driver, that he is just there because Daddy owns the team. But put it this way, if Daddy didn't have the team, I don't think Lance would be a Formula One driver because he doesn't want to be one." Mike Crack, the former team principal of Aston Martin, has defended Stroll regarding the comments made by Steiner. He went on to say, "When we had the 3-week break recently, I had Lance on the phone asking if we could organize some driving somehow in an old car because he wants to drive. That is the difference. It's a sport with no testing, and we have someone who loves driving. It's very unfair when you read some of the comments. They are often written without much research because it suits the public opinion. Let's write that, and we can fill some lines." There have been interesting events happening in the past couple of weeks where Lance Stroll has tried out another racing category, such as rallying. To be fair, the insights have shown a pretty decent craft that maybe Lance has in him, but wasn't too keen on pushing in that area because of his father's ambitions. Yes, Lance is the primary reason why Aston Martin entered into the sport, thanks to Lawrence's money, and now that they are one of the greatest threats regarding 2026. The Canadian driver is paradoxically the one we should thank for everything that has happened to this point. This is where other influential figures within Aston Martin, such as Adrian Newey, come into play. The Brit has reportedly had closed-door talks with Lawrence Stroll, where he expressed dissatisfaction with Lance and suggested that he should be replaced. This raises an important question. Do you really want to be in this sport just because you have a safe job and protection from the top man himself? Maybe Lance has untapped potential, as he's still relatively young. Racing in other championships is a realistic goal. Aston Martin has branches in the World Endurance Championship, which might satisfy his ambitions. Even if it's not with Aston Martin, a poor F1 career doesn't mean his racing future is doomed. F1 requires immense talent, dedication, and hard work. While Lance might have the talent, his lack of the other two makes him a bit of a liability on the grid. With Newey and Honda joining the team and high-profile engineers like Emo Cardal and Addy Cal, Aston Martin will be aiming for nothing less than a double championship from 2026 onwards. Despite Honda's concerns regarding the first season of the new regulations, the knowledge of these engineers will determine whether Aston Martin can fight at the front in 2026. Here's another issue for Lance. If Aston Martin builds a competitive car, does he have what it takes to win the championship? 2026 is expected to be an engine-dominated season, similar to Mercedes in 2014. If Honda delivers, would Lance be the driver to capitalize? Unlike Verstappen, who won a championship with the third fastest car, Lance would need an extraordinarily good car and weak competition to even have a shot at a title, which is ultimately Lawrence's dream. With all this in mind, do you think Lance Stroll is not good enough for Aston Martin? More importantly, do you think a replacement is on the way sooner rather than later? Let us know in the comments below.